Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another replay. I am your host, Ladpad, and today we are watching BigfootPRD in his Ka-Ri. This is the relatively new Tier 8 Japanese tank destroyer, and it's kind of an all-rounder. This is not a tank that I personally have watched, that I personally have played, but Bigfoot is going to demonstrate exactly how this tank should be used. A few things about it. So the Ka-Ri's not very fast. It caps out, you can see its speed is about 40 kilometers per hour. So it's not fast, but it's not slow either. There are many slower tank destroyers. For example, the Turtle and the TS5 are much slower than this tank is. Its armor is not bad. This superstructure, if we take a look over here, is about 230 millimeters effective. However, this upper and lower plate are much worse. So, what you're able to do is against opponents with about 225 millimeters penetration, so that's going to be most Tier 7, Tier 8 tanks that are firing regular rounds, you are able to poke your superstructure out and have a reasonable chance at dodging or blocking shells. However, if they get to that upper or lower plate, that is absolute paper. It's about 180 millimeters of effective armor, and so that's something that just about any tank can just slice through. Now, the superstructure and the armor is okay. The speed is decent. Let's talk about the gun. This 127 millimeter, hits hard. It has 500 alpha damage, which is some of the highest at Tier 8 for a tank destroyer. Something like an ISU 152 or an ISU 152K might have significantly more alpha damage, but outside of those tanks, you are packing more than something like a Scorpion, more than all those Tier 8 German TDs, and you're really in just that really healthy range of 500, 490, 530 alpha that is just so impactful at Tier 8. Beyond just the damage output, the reload is pretty decent. You're reloading a little bit slower than a Scorpion G or something like an SU-130 might, but overall, the rate of fire is very good, and you're packing about 2,300. It's going to be base damage per minute, so that is definitely solid. The accuracy and just the dispersion values on this thing is able to move and to aim very fluidly and very well. You'll notice whenever Bigfoot pops out throughout this replay, he's able to snap his gun on target extraordinarily quickly. It aims very well, and it's reasonably accurate. So this is just, once again, just an all-rounder of a gun. It does a lot of things well. It doesn't do anything at an incredible rate. It's not the biggest alpha or the highest damage per minute, but it's consistent and it's solid, and it's going to do so much work in this replay. This replay, you'll notice, says 15 kills, but 1 loss. And honestly, I can't even explain what's going to happen at the end of this replay, because just as a spoiler warning, Bigfoot and his team are going to get 15 kills, and it's going to have one of the wildest endings I've ever seen. But you'll have to watch and see to the end of the replay how that happens. Bigfoot is already up to 3,500 damage. He has just been consistently whittling down the enemy tanks that are pushing. This is something you have to do a great job of in your replays. Notice that Bigfoot, he didn't just stay forward and allow himself to die. He saw there was just a swarm of heavy tanks in front of him, and he pulled back, keeping his gun forward, and it's allowed him to move to a position where his allies can aim towards him and essentially create a firing line to help him out. He's mostly in cover. He's supported by the Charioteer, the STA-1, sniping behind him, and he's able just to farm and put shots into the sides and to the fronts of these tanks as they focus on the gun line in the foreground. A beautiful HE shell into the Scorpion G. These HE shells do 630 damage. That is really hefty, and so it's adding up to just a really fantastic, well-rounded tank. I don't think this is a must-buy for anybody. This isn't a tier 8 premium where I say I have to have this one, but if you find it on a good sale and or perhaps if Wargaming puts it in the new loot boxes, which isn't impossible. I would say this is definitely worth a pickup. I think you have a lot of fun. You're going to be able you'll be able to be just a little bit more active than something like a Scorpion G, something like an SU-130, and that armor will allow you just to be a little bit more useful in more scenarios where you don't have to camp all the time. With that said, I wouldn't consider this the absolute best Tier 8 TD Premium. There's several tanks that I think are just a lot more flexible or fun to play. For my taste, I think the SH PTK TVP 100 is probably the strongest Tier 8 premium tank destroyer in the game. If you wanted to sort of go a different style, something like a Turtle that got recently buffed is extraordinarily strong. Something like a Turtle sacrifices a lot of speed. It's much slower than the Kari, but it gains so much back in damage per minute. I believe increased gun depression, and so I prefer tanks that sort of maximize one stat and can prove to be sort of best in class. Now, taking a look, Bigfoot is moving forward. He's interested in supporting this ELC Even 90, who is shooting and spotting for him. Unfortunately, that shell just completely whiffs, one of the very few shells that Bigfoot is going to miss throughout this replay, and he gets a second crack at it. One thing I wish he would have done, if he would have fired an HE shell right there, that would have been a confirmed kill. Unfortunately, he loaded AP, and so the SU-130 is going to get away for the time being. Already up to 5,700 damage in the replay, and Bigfoot's team is still down by almost 1,000 hit points, and there are still 5,800 hit points remaining for the enemy team. Notably, Bigfoot has loaded HE. He should be able just to one-shot the Scorpion. The Scorpion fires, but he low rolls. That low roll was minus 105. How is he going to get through this without losing any HP? And a beautiful decision to get a ram kill right there. Saves Bigfoot about 500 health. The Scorpion had the reload. A Scorpion has a faster reload than the Kari does. It also has less alpha damage, so combined with smaller alpha damage and better DPM, that Scorpion definitely would have loaded first. And so beautiful forward thinking by Bigfoot. He goes ahead, he gets a ram, and he will need every health point he has to get through this replay. Now, I love what Bigfoot is doing here. When you have a light tank in the late stage of the game and you're in a snipey tank destroyer, you should do everything you can to help them. Keep your gun focused on where the ELC or your light tank is going. How on earth did that shot miss? And we're going to have to remember that shot for later, because it's going to have, we'll say, pretty strong consequences for the magnificence of this replay. Unfortunately, the ELC goes way too deep, and he's already lost about 800 health. Right here, Bigfoot does a great job of supporting the ELC, ends up killing the STRV S1, but the ELC falls to the Scorpion. And so while it was a fantastic idea for Bigfoot to help out in that scenario, unfortunately the ELC is too aggressive and dies for his mistake. Now it's 4v4, and Bigfoot's team is down by over 1,000 HP, and this is starting to get a little sticky. As we take a look at the map, Bigfoot's team has largely just camped in base this entire game, and Bigfoot decides to get out of there. There's no sense in hanging out on that ridgeline where he can get spotted and then the entire enemy gun line can focus in on him. Instead, Bigfoot has elected to push forward and try to see if he can get some shots into the object 252, or probably more likely, he just wants the enemy to push and to try to repel them as best he can. One of my biggest pieces of advice for anybody who's trying to improve their game is be more patient. Your gun on 1 health, 50% health, 100% health does the exact same damage. So when you're considering of YOLOing in to your opponents, just be patient. Stay in a bush, camp out what you can, and only take aggressive plays when you know they're going to have a big impact going forward. A lot of players make huge mistakes in that they would push forward in a scenario like this. They'd sacrifice all their health, and then they'd lose their tank, lose their life, and unfortunately lose the game. Bigfoot is going to demonstrate excellent patience. He's going to hang out and wait for the enemy to get impatient and push his team instead. Interestingly, Bigfoot does get spotted. The defender must have spotted him right there in the bush line, and so he pulls back immediately. He now knows exactly where the defender is, he knows where the Pantera is, and he's contemplating how can he get great shots into these enemy tanks. So long as the enemy pushes in right here, the Bigfoot's team has an excellent opportunity to just start farming. Interestingly, Bigfoot blind fires, actually bounces his shell. That was a beautiful play that somehow didn't pay off because that Pantera ricocheted a 127mm shell. That is beautiful play from Bigfoot, and unfortunately it doesn't end up paying off in the end. Bigfoot swaps to his HE shell with intuition. I'm not sure this is completely necessary, but right here it is going to allow him to secure a kill guaranteed. He actually swaps back to the AP. I hate this decision for Bigfoot. He should load the HE right now so he's guaranteed to kill the Scorpion instead of leaving it up to RNG. Right now he's got about a 60% chance to kill the Scorpion. Somehow it low rolls again, and if he would have just loaded HE right there, he wouldn't have had to deal with this 35 health Scorpion. Now, the Scorpion does end up missing. Bigfoot is going to press his advantage, and he does end up killing the Scorpion, but how much better would it have been if Bigfoot had already killed that Scorpion and was farming this defender in front of his face? That would have been a more optimal play, and unfortunately it doesn't end up working in Bigfoot's favor. Now, we have a 2v4 scenario. The Alpine Tiger is on basically no health, and we're going to see how does Bigfoot get out of this scenario. Bigfoot is actually pushing in. He knows that if the Alpine Tiger dies, he's going to be faced with a 4v1, and when the enemy is grouped up like they currently are, and you're in a 3v1, you have very little chance. Much better to try to push against your opponents, isolate them while they're still a little disorganized, and hopefully take down a victory. Unfortunately, the Alpine Tiger does end up dying. Bigfoot is desperately seeking cover. He barely dodges the defender's shot. The Pantera shot somehow bounces off his rear, and now the enemy's perhaps a little overconfident. Bigfoot puts in one shell, and this Pantera is advancing against him, so Bigfoot's going to be able to put in two shells, and that means that the Pantera can now be killed with Bigfoot's next shot. Interestingly, the defender is firing HE against him, and so we're going to have to note that, lock that down. The defender is less of a threat than we would expect. The Pantera easily goes through the front of the Kari because the Kari just has garbage armor on the upper and lower plate. The only army you can truly trust is going to be your superstructure, and even that superstructure is only going to work if they're firing AP in most situations. Something like the defender actually probably will bounce its regular shells against the superstructure, but the SU-130PM is going to go in no matter what. Beautiful shell from Bigfoot right there, cleaves right through the side or the lower plate of that defender, and right now Bigfoot is in a precarious situation. The cap is already at 50. He only has about 45 seconds left on this replay, and he's got to get there. He's got to kill the defender. He's got to kill the SU, or at least reset it. And we only have 53 seconds left in this replay. How on earth is this going to end? Bigfoot pushes forward, gets a beautiful kill on the defender. Notice just how excellent this gun handling is on the Kari. He barely had to stop moving or to slow down in order to have a great chance at penetrating that shell. Now, Bigfoot, 15 seconds. He's pushing up. He's hoping to see the Scorpion somewhere close by. He pops over the ridge, and the SU-130PM isn't there. He advances. Bigfoot's moving in. 2 seconds. 1 second. There the SU is. He fires. He misses. The SU hits somebody. Low rolls. He gets the kill. And 15 kills. Defeat? Base captured? Ladies and gentlemen, I have no words to explain what happened. He has 15 kills, but the game has registered a base capture. Now we're going to look at the post-game results. Bigfoot ended up with 9,807 damage. If we recall, he ended up missing that shot improbably against the artillery, and if he would have connected that shot, that would have pushed him into 10,000 damage in a tier 8 tank, no less. However, that was not enough to take down a victory. As we take a look at the team results, the enemy team is all dead. Not a single living player, and in fact, Bigfoot is still alive on his team, and yet it's a defeat. I don't think I've ever seen a situation like this. What ended up happening is World of Tanks, when you finish capping, it secures the time in, and I believe it takes 5 seconds post-cap for the game to end. Bigfoot pushed forward. He missed his shell. He did end up killing the SU-130 PM. However, the game seemed to think that the 5-second push off was completed, and so it logged a victory for the enemy team, despite the fact that it was a 15-14 score in favor of Bigfoot. Bigfoot, obviously the top on his team. Credit to the defender and the SU, who both lived to the end of the game. They had over 3,000 damage and 8 kills between the two of them, and really excellent result for them. Taking a look at the post-game results, yes, Bigfoot did fire an enormous amount of premium ammunition. He still finishes with 187,000 credits profit because he's running a personal reserve bonus and gets some sort of achievement, perhaps a clan booster there. He had excellent marksmanship right here. He shot 26, hit 23, penetrated 21, and honestly, a lot of those misses were just pure RNG and bad luck. He ends up with 1,435 base XP and just crushes one of the greatest tier 8 replays I've ever seen. Bigfoot, thank you so much for uploading this replay to Tanks to World of Tanks replays. It was a pleasure watching it, and just I cannot believe what I saw. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Lad out.